Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam vaed.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. The calls for peace and justice are echoing throughout the land. From chantings in the streets, on the pages of every newspaper, across the channel of every airwave, literally awash across social media, from platforms like Facebook to Twitter and beyond. It seems the time when the words we ought to be speaking should come from the posters of peaceful protesters, not an aging parchment scroll from an ancient Hebrew text. But then we look down at the words on the parchment page before us, and we are reminded why so often the leaders of civil rights movements like the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would base their calls for peace and justice on the roots of peace and justice found here within this timeless text. This week, we read from the book of Numbers, Bamidbar in Hebrew, which means in the wilderness. What are perhaps the most ancient words in the entire Torah and the most old and revered blessing in continuous use in the entire world. They're the words of the priestly benediction, ordained by God, instructed by Moses, the exact words which Aaron and his sons after him were commanded to use to bless the children of Israel. Here in the Torah they read, Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el Aharon ve'el banav lemor, ko tivarchu et bnei Yisrael amor lahem, yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yikuneka, yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom, v'samu et shemi al bnei Yisrael, v'ani avarchem. And God spoke to Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and his sons, saying, Thus shall you bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, May God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May God's face be lifted unto you and grant you peace. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. There's a lesson which calls out from these words and from the words around these words, which speaks to us today of the path of peace and justice, which the Torah was meant to represent. The biblical commentator Rashi explains the clear meaning intended by these ancient words of blessing. May God bless you and keep you from harm is a physical promise of protection from harm in all places. May God's face shine upon you and be gracious unto you is a spiritual promise, which implies God's goodwill and respect for all human life. May God's face be lifted unto you, which means that God will see us and recognize our humanity, will grant unto us the ultimate blessing of shalom, wholeness, justice, and peace. Because shalom means more than the absence of conflict. Shalom comes from shalem, which means complete, to be made whole, so that there will be no need for conflict again. No justice, no peace is more than a slogan. It speaks of the very essence of the biblical word for peace, shalom. You're beginning to recognize, perhaps, why Martin Luther King was so partial to this ancient scroll, and why its words are so relevant for us today. Follow me a little further to a lesson we can learn from the words around these words. The Midrash, a collection of words around the words of Torah from about 1,500 years ago, creating what would become the first layer of the commentary of the texts. And the rabbis who wrote the Midrash were fascinated by the priestly blessing, not because of the power or the beauty of its history or its words, but because of who was commanded to say these words of blessing. In Midrash Tanhuma, we read, "The house of Israel said to the Holy One, blessed be, ruler of the universe, you ordered the priests to bless us? We need only your blessing. Look down from your holy habitation and bless your people." The Holy One, blessed be, replied to them, "Though I ordered the priests to bless you, I stand together with them, and I bless you." The rabbinic commentators take up this same theme, largely ignoring the beautiful text of the blessing, to struggle with the question of from whom the blessing must come. And this matters, because throughout Jewish tradition, God is the source of all blessing. People can't bless God. People can't bless other people. All we can do is hope and pray that God will bless us or someone else we love. We even have a Hebrew word for this, and you know this word, because if you know only two Hebrew words, there are probably shalom, which, as we said, is a word for wholeness, justice, and peace, and the word baruch, which is the word for blessing. But you may have noticed that this most ancient of blessing never uses the word baruch. This bothered the ancient rabbis, not because of the absence of the word baruch itself, but because of the rejection of the very concept that it had come to represent. We say Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu at the beginning of every blessing. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, and we have a lot of blessings. So it begins to sound very familiar to us in our mouths, this word Baruch. But the word Baruch is actually a very odd Hebrew word because it doesn't say bless, it says blessed or praised. It's a passive word, not an active one. And there's a reason for that, which goes to the meaning of blessing at its core. We don't bless God. Only God can bless us. We can't bless each other. We can only pray that God will bless us and those we love. And so we say, blessed are you, Adonai, our God. We can simply recognize what God has already blessed. But here, we read in our most ancient and beloved blessings, in the Torah, and it doesn't say the word baruch, blessed. It begins with an active verb, yivarechecha, God will bless you, as if the priests had the power to bring God's blessing down upon us simply by uttering these words. And that's where that ancient midrash comes in. It said, I ordered the priests to bless you. I stand together with them and bless you. Which spells out the lesson that echoes so deeply for us on this very day. The ultimate prayer of shalom for wholeness, justice, and peace is not magical. It's aspirational. We can't make God bless us with peace simply by saying these words and waiting for peace to rain down upon us. A blessing is an expression of hope. And while hopes may begin by giving them words, peace can only come when we do the work of justice and peace ourselves. And in this way, we are called to truly become partners with God in the building of a better world. Thoughts and prayers are not enough unless these thoughts and prayers can lead to peace and justice, which is exactly what they were intended to do. It won't be easy, and it will take all of us working together over time. But Martin Luther King Jr. understood that too. That's what he meant in Montgomery, Alabama in 1956 when he said, democracy gives us this right to protest, and that is all we are doing. We can say honestly that we have not advocated violence, have not practiced it, and have gone courageously on. Ours is a spiritual movement, depending on moral and spiritual fortitude. The protest is still going on. Freedom doesn't come on a silver platter. With every great movement towards freedom, there will inevitably be trials. Somebody will have to have the courage to sacrifice. And you don't get to the promised land without going through the wilderness. And you don't get there without crossing over hills and mountains. But if you keep on keeping on, you can't help but reach it. We won't all see it, he said, but it's coming. and it's because God is for it. We won't back down. We're going on with our movement. God be praised for you, for your loyalty, for your determination. May God bless you and keep you. And may God be with us as we go on. May the work of our hands be blessed. May the work of our hands bring blessing. May we all be blessed with God's blessing of peace. Please join me in the blessing after the reading of the Torah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.